Well, cabbages, leeks, onions, and broccoli are all doing pretty good, which brings me to the message of the day about local and seasonal eating. Yep. I've discussed eating locally and seasonally before as regards to, it's a very logical way to eat. It's probably good for our bodies, good for the planet, reduces the carbon impact and so on. But right now we got another great reason for doing just that, and it's inflation is back with us again. Yep, I've been on the bandwagon of local and seasonal eating for a long time. Of course, obviously, producing your own local food has been even more important to me and what I have to say. But then again, there's that old inflation has, reared its ugly head again, which again brings back the point that I've made in the past on investment videos. Money's an abstract commodity. It has no actual value. And it's kind of like a lot of us are so hung up on the value of a dollar and it rules our life. It's like I encourage you to try to get over it a little bit by looking at it right now to realize you had $1, last week, but you got 80 cents this week. That's the way it goes. So that's generally why I encourage people to do investing, because the money I have sitting in the bank right now is worth less than it was a week ago. Now, it didn't do me any good to put it there, except it didn't get stolen. I didn't lose it. That was about the only good part of the stuff that's in the bank. But back to the main topic, which is food. Right now, the cost of all food is going up. The beef is really nuts. I think that's gone 40% or something crazy like that. There's a lot of reasons. There's so many different reasons actually why this stuff happens. But definitely transportation is a big part of it. Of course, fuel has gone up dramatically during the COVID. And so the price of moving anything, just because of the fuel, the petroleum, right there is one good reason. There's a shortage of truck drivers out there right now, too, because of the pandemic. There's a lot of reasons, but this is not the time to use asparagus that is brought from Argentina and paying a ridiculous price for it in the market when you could be using, potatoes grown in Idaho or beets grown in New York or something closer to home, or even better yet, something you pulled right up out of your own garden. Ooh, boy, what a way to save money, huh? That's a radical concept. So much of our food, you realize, is trucked from, all corners of the planet to get it to where we're at. Those items are definitely going to be more expensive. Now, there may be some collusion in the meat industry. There's been problems of all sorts, weather problems, all sorts of things that affect this. But I am understanding that there's a pretty much 300% profit increases since COVID on the 4 major meat packers we have in the country. But there's been no increase at the farm level. The farmers are taking it. So somebody's making money somewhere, and it's not being shared. So I'd say it has a lot to do with greed when you see that sort of thing. Otherwise, the farm would be making a little bit more on the beef, too. They're not. Farmers getting the short end, so's the consumer. It's only the guys in the middle. As I've said before, it's the people that are the suppliers, the producers more so, that really have control on these things. When you're the consumer. So, here in Hawaii, it's easy, I guess, for us when I go into, say, KTA, one of our local supermarkets, major supermarket we have here. If I go into KTA, everything that's produced locally here in Hawaii has a Mountain Apple sticker on it at their supermarket. And so I'm going around. If I want to choose what is local, what is seasonal, really there, all I got to look for that Mountain Apple sticker. pretty simple way to go. Now, I don't know about what other markets and other places do, but if you happen to be here in Hawaii and you shop KTA, it's one real easy way to figure out what's coming from the local. Now, of course, the local Hawaiian market was always pretty expensive, and oftentimes more expensive than the mainland imported stuff. That happens a lot here. On the other hand, I'm hoping with a 40% increase in the price of beef on the mainland from those suppliers that are local suppliers here, because we raise most of our own beef, in the islands. We have local Hawaiian ranches, Parker Ranch and so on. And we have our own cutters over here, people that deal with that. Hopefully, as the mainland price goes up, maybe the local price won't go up so much, so they may become more even. Another thing to note, there's a lot of people here on the island that have SNAP benefits, food stamp type cards, and so on. KTA, if it's in produce and it has the mountain apple sticker on it, if you pick that head of lettuce up instead of the one from the mainland, you get it for half price at KTA. When you're using the SNAP benefits card and you are picking up mountain apple brand produce, KTA subsidizes 50% of it for you. That's a great way to save some money. But just for the rest of us, eating locally, that's the way to go. And if it happens to be from your own garden, that's way better off. There's no transportation involved other than your feet to get it into the kitchen. The processing is much more limited. The chances that it's going to be contaminated with something is much, much less. It's just a much safer, more guaranteed food source, actually. And it isn't as nearly as affected by inflation. There probably be some increase, has been an increase in the price of fertilizers. Seeds, they've gone up. On the other hand, if you're shopping here in the Green Garden Guy's nursery looking for stuff, I refuse. I am not about to raise my prices because everybody's saying it's an inflation. I'm not the sort of person that immediately knee-jerks and goes, oh God, I better raise prices. Oh, no. I don't need the money. It's not important to me. I would rather just keep things as they are. Those of you who are maybe ordering seeds or plants, or you may have noticed a few prices have gone up a little bit, and that's all because of postage. I have no control over what that moron DeJoy does up there in trying to destroy the post office. He's done a pretty good job on it. And so postage has gone up, and so anything I have to ship, and there we go, we're back to shipping again. If it has to be shipped, you're going to be paying for it one way or another. So eating seasonally and locally is not only good for your body and your spirit, it's really good for your pocketbook. You may not save a lot, but it's certainly worth looking into, because if you're growing it or if you're finding it at the farmer's market, perhaps the guys at the farmer's market in your area, like myself, have not decided to just start arbitrarily jacking up prices because somebody says it's an inflation. I know I'd have to be squeezed before you could get me to do that. Slowly over time, with the rest of the economy, I gradually raise rates on things, but I certainly don't react quickly to a situation like this. My opinion is that this particular source of inflation here on this is a temporary situation that is not going to hold out for very long. At least I hope it won't. It's directly related to COVID, supply line disruptions, and people profiteering. They always do that during any kind of emergencies. Someone does anyway, raise up the price of something just because they can do it. And that's why I refuse to, because I think that stinks. Just because you can make it more expensive doesn't mean that's a good thing to do. I hope you can sleep at night. Because even though I don't raise prices half the time, I don't sleep at night anyway. Yeah. Alrighty, so, like I say, I wouldn't use Argentine asparagus right now when you could find a domestic carrot or some other piece of produce as a substitute that isn't going to have to be shipped for 5,000 miles to get it to your marketplace. We are very lucky here in Hawaii is that when I talk about seasonal eating, here there is always something coming in from the fields. We don't have a time when our fields aren't producing here. So it's a little easier. But no matter where you are, if you didn't store it, people right now in Minnesota are looking out the window at nothing but snow, and they're going, "Guys, moron in Hawaii talking about seasonal eating. What am I supposed to do? Gobble snowballs?" I hear you, but I used to live there too, and I had food because I stored it in my root cellar. I put it in jars and I stacked it up along the well tank. I did many different ways of keeping food stored for the winter time. Plus, there always was the ice fishing rod and the shotgun, So that always existed too, but the last ditch thing to have to wander out in the woods and find something live to eat in the winter. Better off that you went to your pantry and found something that you'd put up last summer. You went down in the cellar and found yourself some squashes you store, sacks of potatoes. That's all good food. I lived on it. I don't have to eat the way I do. I can easily afford to purchase all of my food from the markets. I didn't. Maybe I got started on this because there was some economic issue to it. It was cheaper, but it was really more for me the quality and the safety of what I was consuming was more guaranteed. Because I started gardening long before anybody had any idea what in the heck a carbon footprint was. And in fact, I started gardening before we started moving pears from Chile. Okay, a lot of this is, pretty recent. It's pretty recent because in my lifetime, Chicago was still supplied by farmers that had truck, produce that grew all the way around the city. The town I went to high school in, Palatine, the house we lived in had literally been built on top of those farm fields when all the land was pretty much turned to suburban housing and the farmers were driven out, and California supplied all the produce, or Florida too, they both did that at the time. Now that's not even them anymore because it's coming from anywhere. Thailand, Chile, Argentina, comes from all over the place. But in my lifetime, it usually came from some small farms around Chicago. We did get oranges, and they came from Florida. And they probably came on a truck from Florida, But we didn't see the kind of variety and the crazy exotic stuff, there were a whole lot of carrots, apples, onions, celery, things like this. A whole lot of that stuff when I was younger. It's changed dramatically today. And I think for now it's about time we kind of look back at the way we used to do things a lot because it would really help us in this situation. You want to save money? Eat local. Hang loose, folks.